We're going to talk about the two guys that we think would be logical choices, and then we're going to have fun with the kind of a cartoonish, like, who do we not want in here? But before we do that, I also had an interesting conversation with Jimmy yesterday in which I asked him pretty pointedly, is there a possibility that the new offensive coordinator takes over play calling duties? And Jimmy did not dismiss that. He said, we'll see. We haven't heard that yet, but we'll see. And that's interesting to me because after last season, a lot of folks wanted to change the play calling responsibilities, whether it was to AVP or a new OC or somebody.
Yeah.
They wanted to see what the offense looked like with someone else calling the plays. Now, all of that fervor died down this year because the play calling for the overly dramatic most part was very, very good. There were fewer instances this year where we were saying things like, why did you bring in your backup to throw that ball when you had your throwing quarterback in the game? That didn't make much sense. Well, you're trying to fool the opposition. But so I just thought it was interesting and noteworthy that Jimmy said, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. So it tells me that he hasn't been told that Stefanski will definitively retain play calling.
And that could lead to, obviously some different candidates.
Well, Jimmy, I'm glad you said that because Jimmy said it's really difficult. It's going to be difficult for AVP to get another job. Not difficult, but more difficult than it otherwise would be because they're going to say, yeah, but you weren't calling the plays.
But again,
how are you going to get a good OC in here and tell him you're going to wear the hat and this message is you're going to take the ball, but you're not going to call the plays.
And you got another dude that's the passing game coordinator. So you wasn't even over the passing game. At least if I'm not going to call the plays, at least give me the diagram and X's and O's.
Maybe they will do that. We shall see. Now, again, Brian Callahan wasn't calling plays in Cincinnati, and he's getting interviewed. I don't know if he's going to get a job, but he is getting interviewed. So it's not, just because you're not calling plays doesn't mean you're not going to get a job. I mean,
he just said it's going to be more difficult.
I don't think Mike McDaniels was calling plays in San Francisco.
He was not.
No,
Shanahan.
Kyle Shanahan was, but he was part of that
if you're
blossoming tree.
If you're a lead on the radio, and it's easier for you to get another job in a bigger market, other if you're the secondary guy. Because the thought process is there's a little more than this entails.
You're the sidekick, not and I think Jimmy's comment was dead on. He didn't say it's going to be impossible for him to get
right. It's harder.
He said it's going to be more difficult because teams are going to say, but you weren't calling the plays. And he also pointed out immediately afterwards, it's going to be difficult to get a high-quality offensive coordinator in here. For instance, my number one choice is currently an offensive coordinator. It would be a lateral move for him.
Right.
He's my number one choice because of some logical connections that he has to someone in the organization. But it would also be a very difficult sell to bring him here to be the OC and not call the plays because he is currently calling the plays where he is. And we'll get to that in a second. But who's your? Do you want to start? Who's your choices?
I'm going to. I did my 6-page Baker Mayfield presentation the other day. This is just a half a page, just with a couple of notes. My number one choice is Clint Kubiak.
Okay.
Clint Kubiak, of course, the son of Gary Kubiak. So he's part of that family tree, which Kevin Stefanski is. Clint Kubiak worked under Kevin Stefanski in 2013, 2014, and again in 2019. Kubiak had left, and then he came back. He went to Denver. In 2019, that was the year Kevin Stefanski, of course, was his 1 year as OC in Minnesota, and Clint Kubiak was his quarterback coach.
Right.
So obviously, there's a lot of family connections between the two. What's he doing right now? He is currently the passing game coordinator for the 49ers. Again,
their passing game looks pretty good.
It does. For him, it's a promotion, even if he's not calling plays.
It is. You're right.
I factored that in.
How much of that is in San Francisco would you credit to Kyle Shanahan, or do we credit him?
Right. I'm going to credit Kyle Shanahan.
Right.
I mean, I don't know the dynamic behind the scenes, but he's obviously a part of it. Right. So it seems like he's a sharp guy. He's from football family. Connection to Stefanski. He's a young guy. And it's a promotion for him, even though he's not calling plays.
Right.
So that's the way I looked at it. That's why he was my first choice. My second choice, I went kind of the other end of the spectrum, a guy that also worked with Stefanski, but he was above Stefanski as opposed to Clint Kubiak, who was below Stefanski. This guy's a veteran coach, and that's Darrell Bevel. Darrell Bevel's been the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for Seattle from 2011 to 2017. In fact, I texted Tyvis about it, and Tyvis said that he loved Darrell Bevel, that he was great, that I won't tell you the reason. I won't say what Tyvis said, why he got ran out of Seattle eventually, but he said it wasn't his fault. And then he went and was the OC for the Lions. The last couple of years, he hasn't been an offensive coordinator. But what was he doing? The last 2 years, he's been the quarterback coach for Tua. Now, they've faltered in the playoffs, but Tua, before Darrell Bevel and Mike McDaniel, looked terrible. Tua, with him, has looked great. And Darrell Bevel hasn't been an offensive coordinator for 3 years.
Just a quick correction.
Yeah.
Darrell Bevel is currently, and I know this because he's my number one choice,
Yeah.
he is the OC in Detroit this year.
No, that's Ben Johnson.
I thought it was Darrell Bevel.
Yeah.
No, Ben
Johnson's in
the OC.
Detroit.
Where is Darrell Bevel? Darrell Bevel is in Miami?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought for some reason Darrell Bevel was in Detroit. He's
No,
not?
Ben
No,
Johnson
Ben-
is
Ben
the guy.
Johnson-
When
the
was
OC.
Darrell Bevel in Detroit?
19 and 20.
He was 19 and 20.
Okay, my bad. My
That's all right.
bad. I stand corrected.
Yeah. So he's been the quarterback coach and the passing coordinator for the last 2 years for Miami. What does Miami do? They run a lot of pre-snap motion, something that could help the Browns because they don't run any pre-snap motion, and they were very good at that. Plus, he's been an interim head coach when coaches have been fired twice. So he has high-level coaching experience.
Didn't do overly well in those stints, but
no,
he,
didn't do
to
well
your
at all.
point,
I'm just saying he has that experience of
which
being
is-
the head man,
Right.
which I think is good.
Yeah.
And he worked with Stefanski. Like I said, he worked above Stefanski. He was the offensive coordinator in Minnesota from 2006 to 2010. Stefanski was a fledgling assistant 2006 to 2008, but Stefanski was the assistant quarterback coach in Minnesota in 9 and 10. Bevel's last 2 years as OC in Minnesota.
right.
So obviously
Bevel was his boss.
Right. So you got Kubiak, who was worked under Stefanski, Bevel, who worked above Stefanski. Both have the connections. Both have been with successful teams recently. But for both guys, it would be a promotion to offensive coordinator. I factored that in, that any current offensive coordinators wouldn't want to switch because they wouldn't want to lose play calling or take a lateral job if they're already not calling plays. So those
G,
are my guys.
Who do you have?
First of all, let's show some respect to the bookie himself. That he definitely looks the part. He has it, and he tucked it down in his front pocket.
In the shirt.
In the shirt.
It was a
definitely-
professional look.
Yeah, it was
for
definitely
sure.
I was talking to people. I know some wise guys on the South Side. They got me together. We know it's good. I like that fool. Listen, first and foremost, the big time move is if you bring Eric Bieniemy in. Now, here's the problem. Eric Bieniemy has known to be a little ornery. He's been known to be a little, how should I say, terse. Yes, he don't play no games. And I don't know how that personality matches with Kevin Stefanski.
Right.
Stefanski is a laissez-faire, hey, guys, we're just going to execute and do our thing. Eric Bieniemy is more of a taskmaster. But when I look at it, though, I think he got something in his back pocket, though. I think he got some plays. I think he got a lot of stuff that you could work with Deshaun Watson. And I think there's a lot of stuff that he could bring to the table that would open this thing all the way up. I mean, hey, Sam Howell threw a lot of interceptions, but he was throwing for a lot of yards too. I just don't know how Kevin Stefanski handles a guy with that personality hanging out behind him with no extension on the table.
Right.
I don't know about that.
Which is the way things stand today. I'm shocked that we didn't hear about an extension Tuesday for Stefanski.
Yeah.
I'll continue to be shocked if we don't hear one in the coming days. It raises eyebrows.
Yeah, like a little bit.
Because you just don't let a head coach go into the last year of his contract.
I guess it's possible they want to work out, make sure they're on top of these assistant coach hirings.
Maybe.
And then they can handle that after because there's nothing as time sensitive.
Are you surprised, though, that we haven't heard about an extension?
I'm trying to remember when extensions normally come. Do they normally come right after this? I don't know.
Usually right after. I mean,
Yeah,
but even if they don't, you'd think that the organization would at least address it and say, look, Stefanski's our guy. We're going to get this done.
I guess if it doesn't happen by, the Super Bowl or around that point, then I'll be really surprised.
It don't count toward the cap. I mean, they could do it at any time,
Sure.
But this is really my guy.
The only thing I would say about Bieniemy, the reason I didn't even consider him is because he was calling plays in Washington.
He was.
And so if I'm him, I don't want to go somewhere again where I'm not calling plays.
I did this exercise assuming that Stefanski giving up play calling could be on the table.
Okay,
now
that's fair.
I'm not 100%
that would
about
change.
it.
That would certainly change
Right.
it.
G, can I throw one counter to Bieniemy real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I love you and Jay, but if you think they didn't run the ball enough now, and you add Nick Chubb back to the equation, nobody runs the ball less than Eric Bieniemy in the history of play calling. So just be ready. If that's who you want, we can't hear they got to run the ball more because that's not in Eric Bieniemy's play sheet.
Listen. If Nick Chubb come back and he Nick Chubb, Eric Bieniemy is no different. He
And
will
also,
hear it.
on the thought that he wouldn't want to leave Washington for Cleveland, he's dangling in Washington.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying like he's going to be looking to get a job with play calling because he might not get it.
Do you think? See that? I wish we could go back and find that tape. When I say that's the dumbest move you've ever made in your life,
was going
to Washington.
Yeah.
It happened just the way I said it. Now you're looking around, and you might not be a coordinator.
And here's the problem. The luster of and I know that the Kansas City offense took a step back in his absence.
Yes.
So he's got that in his tool bag for arguments.
Yes.
He can say, look, they had pretty much the same offense they won the Super Bowl with last year. What happened? Because we've asked, what's different? The receivers are still mid. But also working against him is exactly what we said on the day he took the lateral move.
Man.
It was I'm betting on myself move, and the thought was he's not going to have the pieces in Washington
no quarterback
to do there what he did in Kansas City. And if his offense doesn't look as explosive and as dynamic as Kansas City's, the luster of Andy Reid is going to wash off of Eric Bieniemy.
Yep.
And I think in part some of that has.
It'll be interesting to see what ends up. If there was a guy that was calling plays, and again, you're right. Like, I don't know that he's lost his job in Washington yet, but he might.
There are reports that obviously a new head coach is
going to want their own guy,
and the new head coach is most likely going to want their guy.
Right.
So his future is very much up in the air.
But he's going to want to call plays. Now, he may end up in a situation where he can't get a job calling plays.
Right. He's not even reportedly getting an interview. Think about it.
For the head coaching job.
Right.
No, if he stays in Washington, it will be as the OC.
So that means that your ultimate goal is right there. They didn't even bring you in for an interview. Yeah. That's all bad. Now,
who's your second candidate?
What'd you say?
Who's your second candidate?
This is the best candidate for me. Listen, this Zac Robinson guy. He was matter of fact, the Saints requested to interview the Rams he's the quarterback coach for the Rams, and he's a passing game coordinator. Now, he was where we at? He's 37, former quarterback, played for the Bengals from 2011 to 2013. He had a couple stints with the Patriots, Seahawks, Lions. He began his coaching career with the Rams assistant quarterback coach in 2019. Was their assistant receivers coach, but he was promoted to the quarterbacks in 2022. He did call some plays. Like he called one game they publicized. They made it known that he was going to call the plays for that game. I like it because of two reasons. One, that high-tech offense that they give him right here, moving around, all that motion and good stuff, that's exactly what the Browns lack. The Rams destroyed the Browns on easy touches, easy targets. Two, they know how to get quarterbacks involved. They need to know how to get receivers involved. They had Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was gone. The mastermind shows me what happens when you got to do it twice. Yeah, Cooper Kupp was good, but that could have just been Cooper Kupp. When they got Puka Nacua and it was just him,
right?
Got you. Then they got Kyron Williams and he was rolling. I said, okay, they got something down there. Now, if you could get him, and the thing I love as well, McVay even has so many playbooks. He has the old school golf playbook where everything looked the same. Like, they would just run the same play, and it would be like, nope, Robert Woods is going to get it. Nope, Cooper Kupp is going to get it. Nope, we're going to hand it outside zone. They got a bunch of different plays. I like the creativity. I think if you bring this young guy in, that's a nice move. But you probably have to offer him play calling.
Right. McNuggets likes him as his first choice. Why?
Yeah, he was actually my first choice. I was saying before the show to Bull, the Browns finished this season ranked 31st in the NFL in motion before the snap. The Rams finished second. So we're going from top of the league to bottom of the league. And
Who was first, Miami?
Miami, yes. Yep. So and that's where Darrell Bevel comes in, who's my second choice. Right. So I'm looking to bring someone in who complements the fancy skill set. McVay runs a West Coast offense with a ton of play action under center as well. So when you look at what Zac Robinson brings to the table, it's kind of an extension of the same offensive philosophy, at least, with some new gadgets that he doesn't currly have in the playbook.
We call
And you
that
add those elements into it, which hopefully Zac Robinson can bring over.
We call that the stimulus package.
Yeah.
That's a stimulus. That's $1,300 with one kid, $2,600 with two kids.
But I like him a lot.
I
He's
think,
young.
I think
quality
Robinson,
of the kid.
player.
I think Robinson's a good choice too. He would have been my third choice if we went 3 on the list.
So the way I did it was I went 1 and 2, the guys who I thought were going to get it, not the guys who I want. I like Robinson because of his pedigree. Worked under Belichick, worked under Pete Carroll, but most importantly, in his biggest role, he's worked under McVay.
Yeah.
And I think that McVay is one of the most innovative passing game minds in the NFL right now. I don't think that's a stretch. Zac Robinson is tied to him. So if I had my choice in a vacuum and could select anybody, and I do think this guy's going to get a job, a better job than he has now. I don't think he's going to get a head job yet. Pause. But I think he's going to get a better job. Okay, he's going to get a better job, I think. And by that I mean an offensive coordinator somewhere. Or maybe it's here. The names that I gave you, I think that I even though I totally brain farted that Darrell Bevel is not in Detroit anymore. Immediately what I thought of was I knew that Bevel was at one point Kevin Stefanski's boss.
Yeah.
And I checked around with a couple of people yesterday here was the question. Bevel, Stefanski, close? Close. To the point where someone told me that Stefanski recently, and I don't know that they didn't say this year, but since being here, would run game plans by Darrell Bevel. What do you think of this? Which isn't uncommon. A lot of friends that work together will, especially because maybe Bevel played this opponent earlier in the year,
right.
Also has a good grasp on what that team does defensively. So it's not completely out of the realm of normal.
I think people, good friends.
It happens a lot.
All the time.
Parcells and Belichick used to talk. Even though their relationship was a little crazy, there were times where they would talk about game plans. And it's not uncommon. So the fact that Stefanski, what that tells me about Stefanski and the way he views Darrell Bevel is he has a great respect for him.
Sure.
A great respect for him. And when I asked, are they close? Are they tight? I didn't get anybody that said, no, they were just, tangentially tied. I've been told that they have a good relationship. They're close. And that, again, Bevel sometimes has helped with game plans, or at least, they've had conversations about that kind of thing. So that would be my number one guess. Again, not my number one pick. My number one pick would be Robinson.
Robinson, by the way, interviewing for the Bears offensive coordinator job today. That just was reported by Alex.
Yeah, he's going to be an OC. It's just going to be where. I think, he's proven enough with the Rams as their quarterback's coach that he's ready to be an OC. Again, not my choice, but if you're reading between the lines here, you have to have Eric Bieniemy in there as if I'm setting odds on who it's going to be. First it's Darrell Bevel, then it's this guy, Eric Bieniemy. Why? It was widely reported that just before asking the Houston Texans for a trade, Eric Bieniemy advocated for the Texans interviewing Eric Bieniemy for their head coaching job. They went another way. Yeah, Deshaun Watson. Who did I say?
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson had told the Texans brass, I want this guy. I want you to talk to this guy. I want to work with this guy. When they didn't even interview him, and by the way, the move that they made was laughably bad. It did not work at all. So maybe in that regard, Deshaun Watson was right. But Deshaun Watson, once upon a time, wanted this guy to be his play caller. And it didn't happen in Houston. And that's why I think as we look at this from the outside, I think if they go with Bieniemy, I think we're going to have our answer to whose voice is the loudest right now in the Browns organization. And it would probably be Deshaun Watson.
I think that would, to me, I would look at it from Stefanski. I would say, look, I would almost just do it just for the simple fact that I know that if Stefanski does not get an extension here, right, he can ride that out and say, they didn't fire me. They just didn't give me no extension.
Right.
I tried everything I could. You know what? We got Deshaun Watson. I went and got another coordinator. I'm a team guy. I did what was best for the organization. We thought we'd bring Eric Bieniemy in, work with Deshaun. Didn't work out. I think Stefanski would be one of the rare coaches that is let go that gets an immediate interview with 3 other teams.
One of the rare Browns head.
Why does a guy who just won 11 games with a team that had no business winning 11 games have to do something that he doesn't want to do? That doesn't make much sense to me.
That's the question.
I'm not saying he doesn't want to hire Eric Bieniemy, but I'm just saying in general, why
it makes no. It's not like he was.
We shouldn't be reacting to this as if he had the season ended in a disappointing way. Every team that loses in the first round of the playoffs is disappointing. This Browns team, as they were constituted with the injuries, had no business winning 11 games.
But the contradictory part is, if you fire your offensive coordinator and you're telling me that you had no business winning these games, then why is the offensive coordinator getting fired?
Which is exactly why I don't understand it.
Because, listen, if Stefanski had to do with this decision, and I was reading, I can't remember now who read it, but I was reading, or wrote it, but I was reading this morning, may have been Mary Kay, that was saying, hey, listen, that it seems to be a mutual parting of the ways between Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt. I think the other 2 coaches are separate. If that's the case, then okay. So it's not this, well, we have to make a huge move because it's a disaster. I just don't know if that's the case. I think we're reading into that. Maybe that's it. But you're always trying to get better. Now, if this is a move that the front office forced on him, well, that's a different story. And
I tend to lean more that way.
Well, if that's the case,
it doesn't feel like a Stefanski move.
If that's the case, then the Browns just have to overcome what some teams don't, which is a pain-in-the-ass meddling owner.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because Kevin Stefanski's done a really good job and shouldn't be forced to make a move that he doesn't want to make. When you force coaches to do things they don't want to do, that's not going to work out in the long run.
No, and you hand them an excuse for failure.
Right.
Yes. If the head coach, and I just don't understand the hierarchy here, but the head coach needs to pick guys on his staff that he's comfortable working with. Mm-hmm. If he's forced to work with someone that he doesn't have a relationship, that he doesn't feel comfortable with, there's automatically adversarial relationship.
It's not going to work out well. I don't know why teams do this. And again, I don't know that the Browns are doing that.
Well, one of the things that I think you have said continually, and I know others that have been around the team say that one of the things Jimmy does is to pit A against B.
Yes, he does.
If you handcuff a head coach with an offensive coordinator that he does not want,
that's a problem.
You automatically tell the head coach, this is my guy.
And the whole team knows it, too.
And now you've got an adversarial relationship between 2 of the coaches that need to have the best symmetry on the team.
All we can do at this point is hope that's not the case.
Hope and pray.